Before we begin, take a moment to slow down. This channel is dedicated to quiet documentaries, stories told slowly, with space to think, or simply to rest. If you enjoy calm knowledge, long-form storytelling, and documentaries made to be listened to, consider subscribing. By subscribing, you support this kind of content, and you won't miss future journeys like this one. Tonight's documentary is about plants, not as background, not as scenery, but as the foundation of life on Earth. They do not speak. They do not move toward us. They do not ask for attention. And yet, everything living depends on them. This is a slow documentary. There is no rush, no loud moments, no sudden conclusions. Just time and a world that grows quietly. Now, let us begin. In the beginning, long before forests, long before flowers, long before the color green covered the land, the earth was silent. Not empty, but silent in a different way. The surface of the planet was harsh, bare rock, endless oceans, an atmosphere heavy and unstable. Life existed, but it was simple, fragile, and hidden. Single-celled organisms floated in ancient seas, surviving moment by moment, shaped entirely by their environment. There were no roots, no leaves, no soil. And yet, within those microscopic lives, a quiet revolution was forming, a process that would change everything. Photosynthesis. At some point in Earth's deep past, certain organisms learned how to capture light itself. Not heat, not movement, but light. They absorbed sunlight and used it to transform water and carbon dioxide into energy. As a byproduct, they released oxygen. At first, this oxygen was poison to most life. It reacted violently with the atmosphere and the oceans. It reshaped the chemistry of the planet. This moment is known today as the Great Oxidation Event. It was not dramatic. It did not happen overnight. It unfolded slowly, over millions of years. But it changed the direction of life forever. These early photosynthetic organisms were not plants as we know them. They were simple, often microscopic, cyanobacteria drifting in shallow waters. Yet they were the ancestors of every tree, every blade of grass, every forest that would one day exist. They created oxygen-rich air. They altered climate patterns. They prepared the planet for complex life. Without them, there would be no animals, no humans, no breathing as we know it. For a long time, life remained tied to water. Oceans were safe. They protected fragile cells from ultraviolet radiation. They provided stability. Land, by contrast, was dangerous. Dry, exposed, unforgiving. But eventually, life began to experiment. Some organisms adapted to shallow shorelines. Others developed protective structures. Slowly, very slowly, green life began to reach beyond the sea. This transition was one of the most difficult steps in the history of life. To survive on land, plants needed solutions to new problems. How to avoid drying out, how to stand upright, how to absorb nutrients without water carrying them, how to reproduce without drifting currents. Each solution took millions of years to evolve. The first true land plants were small, low to the ground, simple in structure. They had no flowers, no seeds, no wood. But they had something revolutionary. They anchored themselves. Early root-like systems allowed plants to grip the soil, to draw minerals from rock, to stabilize the ground itself. As plants spread, they began to change the surface of the earth. Rocks broke down into soil. Rain behaved differently. Erosion patterns shifted. Land was no longer just stone. It became alive. With plants came new environments. Moist ground shaded from direct sunlight. Microclimates formed beneath primitive vegetation. Life diversified. Insects would eventually follow. Then amphibians. Then forests. But at this stage, plants were still pioneers. Silent, unnoticed, yet unstoppable. They did not move. They did not hunt. They did not flee. They endured. One of the most remarkable aspects of early plants is time. They did not rush evolution. They did not adapt quickly. Instead, they shaped the world by existing within it. Each generation altered the environment slightly. Each death enriched the soil. Each growth changed airflow, moisture, and temperature. Plants became architects of Earth's surface without intention, without awareness, without urgency. As oxygen levels increased, the sky itself changed. Ozone formed. Ultraviolet radiation weakened. Land became safer. This allowed plants to grow taller, to spread farther, to experiment with new forms. Stems thickened. Vascular systems developed. Water could now travel upward against gravity. This was a turning point. Plants were no longer bound to the ground alone. They could reach toward the sky. From this moment onward, the story of Earth is inseparable from the story of plants. Climate cycles, carbon storage, atmospheric balance, all influenced by green life. Plants became the planet's lungs, its skin, its quiet regulators. They did not dominate through speed or strength. They dominated through patience. This is where the journey truly begins. Not with forests, not with flowers, but with fragile green life learning how to exist in a hostile world. Slowly, silently, relentlessly. In the next part, we will move deeper into how plants learn to live, how they feed, how they breathe, and how light became their language. But for now, rest with this thought. Every breath you take began with something green learning how to stand in the light.
At first, the land did not welcome life. There was no soil to hold roots, no shade to soften the light, no reliable water source. The surface of the earth was exposed, dry, and unpredictable. For early plant life, leaving the ocean was not progress, it was risk. Water had always been protection. It buffered temperature, filtered radiation, carried nutrients directly to cells. On land, nothing was carried for free. Everything had to be earned. The first plants that reached the shoreline were small, extremely small. They stayed close to moisture, close to the ground, close to survival. These early land plants did not grow tall. They spread outward instead. Thin structures pressed against damp surfaces, absorbing water directly through their tissues. Roots, as we know them, did not yet exist. One of the greatest challenges was dehydration. On land, water evaporates, cells lose pressure, structures collapse. To survive, plants developed protective outer layers. Thin at first, almost ineffective. But over time, these layers thickened. They reduced water loss. They slowed evaporation. Life learned how to keep itself together. Another challenge was gravity. In water, buoyancy supports fragile forms. On land, everything must support itself. Early plants could not stand upright. They lay flat, hugging the surface. But evolution experiments constantly. Some cells became thicker. Others specialized in structure rather than energy. Slowly, plants began to resist gravity. Then came a turning point: the development of internal transport systems. Primitive vascular tissues allowed water and nutrients to move from one part of the plant to another. For the first time, plants were not limited to where water touched them. They could pull moisture upward. They could grow taller. This was not speed, it was possibility. As plants rose higher, they gained access to more light. Light became competitive. Those who reached higher absorbed more energy. Those below adapted or disappeared. This quiet competition reshaped landscapes. With height came another problem: exposure. Sunlight, once a resource, became a threat. Ultraviolet radiation damaged cells. Wind increased water loss. Plants responded with structure, thicker stems, protective pigments, leaf shapes that balanced exposure and efficiency. Every solution introduced new limitations and new opportunities. Reproduction posed yet another challenge. In water, reproduction was simple. Cells drifted, currents carried them. On land, nothing drifted reliably. Early plants relied on spores, tiny, lightweight structures released into the air. Most failed. Some survived. Enough survived. Over immense periods of time, plant life spread across continents. Not evenly, not quickly, but persistently. They followed moisture. They followed temperature. They followed patience. As they spread, they transformed the land. Bare rock became soil. Soil held water. Water supported more plants. Feedback began. Life creating conditions for more life. The earth itself responded. Carbon dioxide levels shifted. Weather patterns softened. Temperatures stabilized. Plants were no longer just adapting to the planet. They were reshaping it. This stage did not produce forests. Not yet. It produced groundwork, a living foundation. Thin layers of green slowly preparing the surface for something larger. Plants did not conquer the land. They negotiated with it. One adaptation at a time. One generation at a time. Millions of years passed before the earth truly looked green, but the direction was set. From this moment forward, the land would never return to being lifeless stone. It had been claimed, quietly, by organisms that did not move, but endured. In the next part, we will look deeper into how plants feed, how they transform light into structure, and how energy flows through a world rooted in silence. For now, remember this: the greatest transformations on Earth were not made by force, but by patience.
By the time plants had established themselves on land, the Earth was no longer the same planet. What began as fragile green life clinging to damp surfaces had grown into a force capable of reshaping an entire world. Slowly, almost invisibly, plants began to alter everything around them. One of the most profound changes occurred beneath the surface. Roots, now more complex, pushed deeper into the ground. They fractured rock, released minerals, created pathways for water. Stone became soil. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but grain by grain. Soil changed how water behaved. Rain no longer rushed away immediately. Moisture lingered. Nutrients accumulated. The land became capable of sustaining life beyond brief moments of wetness. As plant cover increased, erosion slowed. Bare ground disappeared. Wind lost its grip on the surface. Floods softened their force. The planet's skin stabilized. Above ground, another transformation unfolded. Plants absorbed carbon dioxide and released oxygen in vast quantities. Over millions of years, this process reshaped the atmosphere. The air became lighter, more breathable, less hostile. This change did not benefit plants alone. It prepared the planet for forms of life that did not yet exist. Climate began to respond. With less carbon dioxide, temperatures moderated, extremes softened. Seasonal cycles became more predictable. Plants acted as regulators, not by intention, but by presence. As vegetation spread, new environments formed. Shaded ground beneath leaves, humid pockets protected from wind, cooler surfaces reflecting less heat. Microclimates appeared everywhere. Life diversified within them. This diversity fed back into plant evolution. Some species adapted to shade, others to direct sunlight. Some thrived in wet ground, others tolerated dryness. Variation increased, not explosively, but steadily. Over time, plants grew taller, structures strengthened, stems thickened, vascular systems improved. Height became an advantage. Those who reached higher captured more light. Competition intensified, but remained silent. This competition drove innovation. Leaves changed shape. Growth patterns shifted. Energy efficiency improved. Plants learned not just to survive, but to optimize. With taller plants came the first forests, not dense at first, not dark, but enough to transform landscapes. Forests altered wind patterns, trapped moisture, cooled the surface. They became climate engines. The presence of forests marked a turning point. The earth now had vertical structure. Life existed not just on the surface, but above it, layered, stratified. New niches formed, and where niches exist, life follows. Insects would eventually adapt to this new world, then larger organisms, then complex ecosystems. But all of it rested on the quiet work of plants. Plants did not evolve to support others. They evolved to persist. Everything else followed. By reshaping soil, atmosphere, and climate, plants transformed Earth from a hostile surface into a living system. Not through speed, not through dominance, but through time. This is the true legacy of plants. They did not simply adapt to the planet. They built it. And once built, they remained silent, rooted, essential. In the next chapter, we will move beneath the surface into the hidden world of roots and the vast underground networks that connect plant life into something far greater than individual organisms. For now, consider this. The world you walk on is shaped by lives that never walked at all. Beneath every forest, beneath every meadow, Beneath every plant that rises toward the light, there exists another world. A world that never sees the sun, a world older than the surface itself. A world where movement is slow, invisible, and continuous. This underground realm is not empty. It is dense with life, structure, and interaction. It is where plants truly live. Roots do not simply grow downward. They explore. They extend through the soil, sensing moisture gradients, mineral concentrations, temperature differences, and physical resistance. Growth is not random. It is guided by subtle chemical and electrical signals that allow roots to choose direction. A root tip is sensitive tissue, constantly sampling its environment. When it encounters dryness, it alters its path. When it detects nutrients, it slows, branches, and invests energy. This process continues silently for the entire life of the plant. As roots grow, they alter the soil around them. They release organic compounds that change local chemistry. They break down rock fragments, freeing minerals once inaccessible. They attract microorganisms that assist in nutrient processing. Soil is not just dirt. It is a living system shaped by roots. Within this system, plants are rarely alone. Fungi play a central role underground. Microscopic fungal threads weave through the soil and attach to plant roots. This relationship is ancient, dating back to the earliest land plants. The plant provides sugars produced through photosynthesis. The fungus provides water, phosphorus, nitrogen, and trace minerals that roots alone cannot efficiently access. This partnership is not optional. Most plants on Earth depend on it. Over time, fungal networks grow vast. They connect the roots of different plants, even different species, into shared systems. Through these connections, resources move. A plant with abundant sunlight may send excess sugars into the network. A shaded plant may receive those sugars in return. Nutrients flow toward areas of need rather than ownership. Information also travels. When a plant is damaged by insects, chemical signals move through the underground network. Nearby plants receive warnings before any visible attack reaches them. They respond by altering their chemistry, becoming less appealing to herbivores. This communication is not conscious. There is no intention, but the result is coordination. An entire forest can behave as a single, responsive system. Roots also compete, but competition underground is subtle. Plants adjust growth rates, root density, and depth. They sense neighbors and respond by reallocating resources efficiently rather than aggressively. Older plants often dominate access to networks. Younger plants benefit from their presence, receiving nutrients and protection during early growth. Communities form structure without central control. Time behaves differently underground. Processes that take seconds above ground may take days or weeks below. Signals move slowly. Adjustments are gradual. This slowness creates stability. Disturbances are absorbed rather than amplified. Roots anchor plants physically and stabilize ecosystems. They regulate water flow, reduce erosion, and store carbon deep underground. Much of the planet's carbon cycle depends on these hidden processes. When roots die, they become organic matter, feeding microbes and enriching soil. Soils remember roots. They retain channels that guide future growth. They preserve microbial communities shaped by earlier generations. They carry chemical signatures of past ecosystems. This memory allows plant life to return more easily after disturbance. Fire may erase vegetation above ground. Storms may flatten forests. But beneath the surface, systems often remain intact. From these hidden structures, regeneration begins. The underground world is also where plants manage risk. When surface conditions become harsh, growth shifts below. Energy is stored in roots rather than leaves or stems. Plants wait. This waiting can last months, years, or centuries. Some plants retreat almost entirely underground during unfavorable periods. They appear dormant, but below the surface, they remain active at minimal levels, preserving readiness. This strategy allows survival through extremes that would destroy visible life. The underground world does not seek attention. It does not display color or movement, but it determines success. Above ground, plants compete for light. Below ground, they cooperate to endure. What appear as individual organisms are parts of larger systems, bound by roots, fungi, microbes, and chemistry. A forest is not a collection of trees, it is a network. A field is not a group of plants, it is a shared foundation. The silence beneath the soil is not absence, it is coordination without sound. And it is here, in darkness and pressure, that plant life reveals its true nature. Not static, not simple, but deeply interconnected.
Beneath the soil, connections do not stop at individual roots. They extend outward, overlap, and merge, forming systems far larger than any single plant. These systems are not designed, they emerge. Fungal networks spread through the ground like living threads, thinner than hair, longer than roots themselves. They move through tiny gaps in the soil, across stones, around obstacles, and into places roots cannot reach. Where a root ends, fungi continue. This expansion gives plants access to a much larger world. Water trapped in distant pockets, minerals locked in dense rock, nutrients scattered unevenly through the ground. Through fungi, plants reach them all. These networks do not belong to one plant. They belong to the system. Sugars produced by leaves travel downward into roots and outward into fungal threads. From there, they move through the network, redistributed according to gradients of demand. A young plant growing in shade may receive carbon from an older plant growing in full sun. A damaged plant may be supported while it recovers. A dying plant may release its remaining resources back into the network. Nothing is wasted. This exchange is not charity, it is balance. Plants that consistently take without contributing eventually weaken. Those that share remain integrated. The network regulates itself. Information moves through these pathways as well. Chemical signals released by stressed roots travel rapidly through fungal connections. Other plants receive the message before danger reaches them. They respond by thickening cell walls, by producing defensive compounds, by slowing growth to conserve energy. This coordination does not rely on awareness. It relies on chemistry. The result is collective behavior without consciousness. Entire plant communities can shift strategy together. Below ground, boundaries blur. Species lines soften. Individual identity weakens. Function becomes more important than form. This is why plants often thrive in groups. Isolation weakens them. Connection strengthens them. The underground network also shapes evolution. Plants that integrate well survive longer. Those that fail to connect are outcompeted, not by speed or size, but by exclusion from shared resources. Over long periods of time, this favors cooperation over dominance. The soil itself becomes structured around these networks. Channels left by roots and fungi guide water flow. Microbes cluster around active exchange points. Nutrient-rich zones form stable patterns. The ground becomes layered with memory. Even when plants above ground change, the underground architecture persists. New plants inherit old networks. They plug into systems built by previous generations. This continuity allows ecosystems to recover after disturbance. After fire, new growth follows old pathways. After drought, regrowth begins where networks remained intact. The visible world resets. The invisible one endures. Depth matters. Shallow roots respond quickly to surface changes. Deep roots access long-term reserves. Together, they allow plants to manage both immediate stress and prolonged scarcity. This layered strategy gives plant life resilience unmatched by mobile organisms. Plants do not flee danger. They absorb it. They do not chase opportunity. They prepare for it. The underground world makes this possible. What appears slow above ground is dynamic below. Every moment, signals move, resources shift, adjustments occur, all without sound, all without motion. This hidden coordination is why plant life persists across centuries, climates, and continents. It is not strength that sustains it. It is connection. In the next part, this network will be viewed not just as support, but as a system capable of memory, adaptation, and long-term strategy.
What happens beneath the soil does not vanish when the surface changes. It remains layered, compressed, and quietly active. The underground world is not designed to reset. It accumulates history. Roots grow, branch, die, and decay, yet their presence rarely disappears. Their pathways remain as softened channels through the soil. Water follows them. Microbes gather around them. Future roots sense and reuse them. These traces are subtle but persistent. Fungal networks expand slowly, weaken in some regions, collapse in others, and reconnect elsewhere. They do not erase themselves, they rearrange. Microbial communities change composition gradually, guided by what already exists rather than sudden surface conditions. This continuity gives soil a form of persistence that mirrors memory. Not memory as awareness, not memory as recall, memory as structure. Soil remembers pressure, moisture, and chemistry. Where roots once drew nutrients, mineral balance shifts over time. Where water flowed repeatedly, resistance decreases. Where organic matter accumulated, life establishes more easily again. When a new plant germinates, it does not begin on neutral ground. It enters an environment shaped by earlier generations. Roots encounter guiding pathways. Growth responds to gradients not created by the plant itself. Microbial populations react immediately, either supporting or slowing development. Plants inherit more than genetic instructions. They inherit conditions. Time underground behaves differently. Above ground, change can be sudden. Storms reshape landscapes in hours. Fire transforms ecosystems in days. Drought alters regions within seasons. Below ground, these events arrive slowly. Heat penetrates gradually. Cold diffuses with delay. Dryness spreads unevenly. What appears catastrophic above becomes trend below. This delay is protective. Roots do not react to immediate shock. They respond to sustained conditions. Growth slows before stopping. Energy use tightens before depletion. Systems stabilize before collapse. Plants rarely commit all resources at once. Instead, they reserve. Energy is stored below ground in dense tissues. Starches accumulate in roots, tubers, bulbs, and rhizomes. These reserves are insurance, not display.
Some plants invest years underground to support a single season above. Others remain hidden for decades, emerging only when conditions align. From the surface, this appears as absence. From below, it is continuity. This strategy allows plants to endure cycles far longer than animal lifespans. Droughts lasting many years, cold periods spanning generations, disturbances permanently altering visible landscapes. The underground system absorbs these stresses. Roots also stabilize time itself. By binding soil particles, they slow erosion. By moderating water movement, they reduce extremes. By regulating nutrient flow, they prevent sudden depletion. The surface becomes calmer because the underground world resists speed. Fast-growing species may dominate briefly. Long-term persistence favors those that invest below. Plants with deep, complex root systems outlast shallow competitors. Those allocating energy underground survive when surface conditions fail. Height does not guarantee longevity. Speed does not guarantee survival. Stability belongs to those anchored in time. Underground memory enables recovery. When vegetation is removed by fire or storm, the soil does not forget how to host life. Nutrients remain bound. Microbial systems persist. Root channels stay open. New plants do not rebuild from nothing. They reconnect. Regrowth follows invisible templates laid down long before disturbance. Ecosystems return not because they are restored, but because they were never fully erased. The underground world carries the blueprint. Plants resume rather than restart. Roots do not seek visibility. They do not announce survival. They persist. Across decades, this persistence is subtle. Across centuries, it becomes influential. Across millennia, it becomes decisive. Plants endure not because they react quickly, but because they are integrated into slow systems that absorb disturbance. The underground world is not a support layer. It is the core. What grows above ground is temporary expression. What exists below defines continuity. Leaves fall, stems break, roots remain. Here, in darkness and pressure, in slowness and accumulation, plant life reveals its deepest strategy: to hold memory, to regulate time, and to wait without weakening. In the next chapter, attention rises toward the surface to examine how plants interact with light and how energy from the sun becomes growth, structure, and lasting balance.
Light is not decoration for plants. It is instruction. It is timing. It is orientation. It is survival. From the earliest moments of plant life, light has been the primary signal that defines behavior. Plants do not see light, they interpret it. Every change in brightness, every shift in angle, every variation in color, and every alteration in duration carries information. Light tells plants where they are, what time it is, and what kind of world surrounds them. Growth begins before light is even present. A seed germinates underground, surrounded by darkness. At this stage, direction is determined by gravity alone. Roots grow downward, anchoring and searching for water. Shoots grow upward, pushing toward the surface. This initial movement is blind, mechanical, and precise. But the moment light reaches the emerging shoot, everything changes. Cells on one side of the stem elongate faster than those on the other. The plant bends, not toward warmth, not toward safety, toward light. This bending is not a decision. It is a physical response controlled by hormones that redistribute growth based on light detection. The plant continuously adjusts its posture, correcting its angle as light shifts throughout the day. Light becomes a guide. Different wavelengths of light carry different meanings. Blue light signals open sky and clear conditions. Red light signals direct sunlight. Far red light signals shade, filtered through other plants. Plants distinguish these wavelengths with remarkable precision. When red light dominates, growth is efficient and balanced. When far red light increases, the plant senses competition. It stretches upward. It allocates more energy to stem elongation. It prioritizes height over thickness. This response happens before physical contact with neighboring plants. Competition begins at a distance. Light also defines time. Plants possess internal clocks that measure the length of day and night. These clocks are not approximate, they are exact. Minutes matter. The timing of leaf growth, flowering, seed production, and dormancy is controlled by repeated light patterns over many days. A single bright day is not enough. Consistency is required. Spring is not identified by temperature alone. It is recognized through a specific pattern of increasing daylight. Autumn is not cold, it is shortening days. Through light, plants synchronize their lives with planetary cycles. Light also governs rest. As days shorten, photosynthesis slows. Growth decreases. Energy is redirected away from leaves and into storage tissues. Roots, bulbs, and stems become reservoirs. Dormancy is not failure, it is strategy. At the cellular level, light controls chemistry. Specialized pigments absorb photons and transfer their energy through tightly regulated reactions. Electrons move between molecules. Chemical bonds are rearranged. Energy from light is converted into stable chemical forms. Sugars are produced. Carbon is fixed. Structure becomes possible. Leaves, stems, roots, and wood all originate from this process. Everything solid in a plant began as light. But light is not always abundant. Clouds block it. Canopies filter it. Seasons limit it. Plants respond by modifying form. Broad leaves increase surface area in low light. Narrow or needle-like leaves reduce damage in intense sun. Some plants rotate leaves during the day to follow the sun. Others fold leaves at night to reduce water loss and damage. These movements are slow but accurate. Light also influences relationships. Plants growing close together read reflected light from their neighbors. They sense presence without touch. This information alters growth patterns long before competition becomes physical. In crowded environments, plants invest in speed and height. In open environments, they invest in stability and longevity. Light determines strategy. Even color has purpose. Some pigments protect tissues from excess radiation. Others optimize absorption under specific conditions. What appears as beauty is regulation. Without light, none of this functions. Plants do not collapse immediately in darkness. They slow. They conserve. They rely on stored energy. But without light indefinitely, structure fails. Energy flow stops. Growth ceases. Light is not one factor among many. It is the axis around which plant life turns. In the next part, attention will move deeper into how light becomes matter and how the quiet chemistry of photosynthesis builds the living world from photons alone. Light alone is not enough. It must be transformed. Within the cells of every green plant, a quiet process unfolds continuously. It is slow, it is precise, and it is responsible for nearly all complex life on Earth. This process is photosynthesis, not as a concept, but as an ongoing conversion of energy into structure. Inside plant cells are specialized compartments called chloroplasts. They are small, numerous, and filled with layered membranes. Within these membranes, pigments are arranged in exact patterns. Their role is simple in description, but complex in execution. They capture light. When photons strike these pigments, energy is absorbed instantly. Electrons are excited, lifted to higher energy states. This energy cannot remain unstable. It must move. The plant channels this energy through a sequence of reactions, each step controlled, each transfer precise. Energy flows not freely, but along designated paths. Water molecules are split, oxygen is released, hydrogen ions and electrons are redirected. This moment alone reshaped the planet's atmosphere. But for the plant, oxygen is not the goal. Energy storage is. The captured energy is used to build molecules that can hold it safely. Temporary carriers transport it. Enzymes guide it. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. Carbon dioxide enters the system quietly. It is fixed, molecule by molecule, into stable carbon structures. Sugars form. These sugars are not sweetness. They are potential. They can be burned immediately to support cellular activity. They can be transported to other parts of the plant. They can be stored for future use. Most importantly, they can become matter. Cell walls, fibers, tissues, wood. Light becomes weight. This transformation is slow but relentless. A tree does not grow because it pulls material from the ground. Most of its mass comes from the air. Carbon dioxide becomes trunk. Sunlight becomes height. The soil provides minerals, but structure comes from light. Photosynthesis does not occur at a constant rate. It adjusts. When light is abundant, energy capture increases. When light is scarce, efficiency becomes critical. Plants regulate this balance carefully. Too much light can damage cellular machinery. Too little halts growth. Protective mechanisms activate when intensity rises. Excess energy is dissipated safely. Pigments shift roles. The plant protects its ability to convert light rather than maximizing immediate gain. This caution supports longevity. Temperature also influences this chemistry. Enzymes function within narrow ranges. Cold slows reactions. Heat destabilizes structures. Plants adapt by altering enzyme forms, membrane composition, and reaction rates. These adjustments are subtle, invisible, and constant. Photosynthesis links plants directly to planetary cycles. Daily light cycles determine short-term activity. Seasonal light patterns determine long-term strategy. In long days, plants expand. In shortening days, they prepare. The chemistry shifts accordingly. Energy is no longer invested in leaves. It is redirected to roots, seeds, and storage tissues. Light dictates not only growth, but allocation. Different plants interpret light differently. Shade-adapted species optimize capture at low intensities. Sun-adapted species tolerate extremes. Each carries a unique chemical configuration, tuned to its environment. There is no universal plant strategy, only context-dependent responses. Photosynthesis is often described as simple. In reality, it is one of the most refined processes known in biology. It operates continuously, quietly, without awareness. It does not seek efficiency in the human sense. It seeks balance. The goal is not maximum output. The goal is survival across time. Through this chemistry, plants anchor energy into ecosystems. Every herbivore consumes stored sunlight. Every predator consumes energy that passed through plants first. Even fossil fuels are ancient photosynthesis, compressed and transformed over geological time. The modern world runs on light captured long ago. But for plants, the process is immediate and ongoing. Each leaf is a factory, each chloroplast a site of transformation. Light enters, matter emerges. In the next part, attention will shift to how plants distribute this energy through their bodies, how internal transport systems move sugars, water, and signals, and how growth is coordinated across an organism that does not move. Once light has been transformed into chemical energy, the work is not finished. Energy must move. Plants are not static structures. They are dynamic systems that constantly redistribute resources, balancing growth, repair, storage, and survival. Inside every plant, an internal transport network operates without pause. Water and dissolved minerals move upward from roots through vascular channels. Sugars produced in leaves move outward and downward, reaching tissues that never see light. This circulation binds the plant into a single coordinated organism. Movement here is slow, but continuous. Unlike animals, plants do not have hearts or pumps. Flow is driven by gradients, differences in pressure, concentration, and evaporation. As water evaporates from leaves, it pulls more water upward from the roots. This tension creates a steady, upward stream. Minerals follow. Sugars move differently. They are actively loaded into transport tissues and pushed toward areas of demand. Growing tips, developing seeds, expanding roots. Where growth occurs, energy arrives. Where stress appears, energy is redirected. This distribution is flexible. A plant does not commit resources evenly. It prioritizes. During favorable conditions, energy flows toward expansion. New leaves, longer stems, wider roots. During stress, flow changes direction. Sugars are pulled back from leaves and stored below ground. Growth slows. Maintenance becomes the focus. This shift can happen gradually or quickly, depending on the threat. Drought redirects energy downward. Shade redirects it upward. Damage redirects it laterally. The plant adjusts without movement. Signals coordinate this adjustment. Chemical messengers travel through vascular tissues, informing distant parts of the plant about local conditions. A damaged leaf alters hormone levels. Roots respond by changing uptake. Growth patterns shift across the entire organism. There is no central control point. Coordination emerges from interaction. Structure reflects this strategy. Plants do not grow uniformly. They grow modularly. Each leaf, branch, and root segment functions semi-independently, yet remains connected to the whole. If one part fails, others continue. This modular design increases resilience. Loss does not equal collapse. A broken branch does not end the plant. A damaged root does not halt survival. Energy reroutes. Over time, this distribution builds form. Thickened stems support transport. Woody tissue accumulates where long-term stability is required. Flexible tissue remains where adjustment is needed. Growth is not symmetrical. It is adaptive. Plants record their history in structure. Years of abundant light produce dense rings. Years of stress produce narrow ones. Past conditions remain embedded in physical form. This record is not symbolic. it is functional. Structural density affects future transport. Past abundance influences future resilience. Energy distribution also determines reproduction. When conditions allow, plants divert stored energy toward flowers, seeds, or spores. This investment is costly. After reproduction, some plants weaken, others recover slowly. Timing matters. Reproduce too early and reserves are insufficient. Too late and opportunity is lost. Light, water, and internal signals converge to decide the moment. Even this decision is distributed. No single signal triggers reproduction. It emerges from alignment. The plant does not choose, it resolves. Through transport, storage, and redistribution, plants maintain coherence without motion. Energy flows define shape. Shape defines future flow. This feedback loop continues throughout the plant's life. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is rushed. What appears motionless is continuously reorganizing itself. In the next chapter, attention will move beyond the individual plant to how these quiet systems scale upward, shaping forests, landscapes, and entire ecosystems through accumulation rather than force.
A single plant is a living organism, but when plants accumulate across space and time, something larger emerges. Not a forest, not a field, not an ecosystem in the simple sense, but a regulating system that reshapes the surface of the planet. When plants spread beyond isolation, their influence begins to overlap. Roots do not touch directly, yet they compete, cooperate, and adapt through shared soil chemistry. Leaves do not collide, yet they reshape airflow, humidity, and temperature around them. Space itself changes. Light no longer reaches the ground in a direct line. It becomes filtered, fragmented, delayed. Sunlight strikes upper leaves first, then scatters, reflecting and refracting before reaching lower layers. Plants respond. Those above grow broader leaves. Those below thin their tissues, optimize pigments, and slow metabolism. Some species abandon height entirely and adapt to shadow. Vertical structure appears. Life distributes itself upward and downward, not randomly, but according to light availability. This vertical layering is not decoration, it is function. Different heights capture different energies. Different layers experience different temperatures. Different zones retain different moisture levels. A plant system becomes three-dimensional. Below ground, the same transformation unfolds. Roots no longer occupy a single depth. They stratify. Some remain near the surface, absorbing rain quickly. Others descend deeper, accessing long-term water reserves. Still others spread laterally, claiming territory rather than depth. Competition exists, but it is moderated by separation. Overlap decreases waste. Specialization increases efficiency. As plant density increases, the environment responds. Transpiration releases water vapor continuously. Humidity rises. Local air cools. Cloud formation becomes more frequent. Rainfall patterns shift. Vegetation begins to influence weather. This is not control, it is consequence. More plants release more moisture. More moisture supports more plant growth. Feedback loops form. Over long periods, these loops stabilize regions. Temperature extremes soften. Dry seasons shorten. Soil moisture becomes more consistent. Plants are no longer responding to climate alone. They are participating in its regulation. The ground changes as well. Leaves fall. Stems decay. Roots die and decompose.
organic matter accumulates. Soil deepens not by addition, but by transformation. Minerals mix with carbon. Microbial life expands. Nutrients circulate instead of escaping. Loss slows. The land becomes fertile not because it receives more input, but because it retains what already exists. As these processes continue, landscapes differentiate. Where fire and grazing interrupt vertical growth, grasslands persist. Where water remains constant, wetlands stabilize. Where long-term balance exists, forests rise. Each landscape reflects a negotiation between plant growth and limitation. Plants do not choose ecosystems. They settle into constraints. Disturbance does not end these systems. Storms knock down trees, opening gaps. Light reaches the ground. Seeds respond. Fire clears biomass, but returns nutrients to soil. Dormant structures activate. Regrowth follows established patterns. Ecosystems recover not by innovation, but by memory. The blueprint already exists. Root networks remain. Soil chemistry persists. Seed banks survive. Plants resume rather than restart. Over centuries, this accumulation reshapes entire regions. Rivers alter course due to stabilized banks. Slopes resist erosion. Deserts retreat where vegetation gains a foothold. Plants influence geology through patience. They do not move mountains, they wear them down. They do not redirect rivers by force, they guide them slowly. The presence of plant systems determines where animals can live, where food exists, where shelter forms. Mobility follows rooted life. What began as isolated organisms capturing light becomes a framework that supports entire biospheres. Plants become infrastructure, not visible as machinery, not audible as activity, but essential. They regulate water, they regulate air, they regulate temperature, they regulate time. Without plants acting collectively, the surface of Earth would revert to instability. Life would fragment, extremes would dominate, continuity would fail. Plants do not dominate through aggression, they dominate through accumulation. Through slow growth layered over long durations, through persistence rather than speed, through systems that do not collapse when individuals fail. This is the moment where plant life stops being biological detail and becomes planetary function. In the next part, attention will move deeper into how these systems stabilize climates over vast timescales, and why the quiet presence of plants has been one of the most powerful forces shaping Earth's long-term balance. Plants do not intend to regulate climate. They have no awareness of temperature, wind, or rainfall as concepts. And yet, over long spans of time, vegetation becomes one of the strongest stabilizing forces on the planet. This influence does not appear suddenly. It accumulates. Every leaf participates. Every root contributes. Every cycle repeats. Together, these repetitions shape climate. At the most basic level, plants interact constantly with the atmosphere. Leaves exchange gases with the air. Carbon dioxide enters, oxygen exits. Water vapor is released. This release of water vapor, transpiration, is continuous. It does not depend on weather events. It depends on life itself. As plants transpire, the air around them becomes more humid. Humidity affects temperature. Moist air heats and cools more slowly than dry air. This reduces extremes. Days become less hot, nights become less cold. Where vegetation is dense, temperature swings soften. This effect scales. A single plant influences only its immediate surroundings. A forest influences regions. As transpired moisture rises, it cools and condenses. Clouds form more readily above vegetated areas. Rain becomes more likely. Rain feeds plants. Plants release more moisture. A feedback loop forms. This loop does not guarantee constant rain, but it increases reliability. Dry periods shorten. Wet periods stabilize. Plants do not create climate. They shape its behavior. Surface temperature is also affected by vegetation. Bare ground absorbs and releases heat quickly. Vegetated surfaces moderate this exchange. Leaves reflect part of incoming sunlight. They shade the ground. They prevent direct heating of soil. As a result, ground temperatures beneath plants remain lower during the day and higher during the night. Thermal balance improves. Roots contribute as well. By holding soil together, they increase water retention. Moist soil heats more slowly than dry soil. This further reduces temperature volatility. Over time, these small effects compound. Regions with stable vegetation develop predictable seasonal patterns. Regions without vegetation experience extremes. Plants also influence wind. As air moves across land, vegetation creates resistance. Wind slows. Turbulence increases near the surface. Slower wind reduces evaporation. Moisture remains available longer. This benefits plants, which in turn reinforce the effect. Vegetation and atmosphere become coupled systems. Carbon regulation is another critical role. Through photosynthesis, plants remove carbon dioxide from the air and store it in tissues. Some of this carbon returns quickly through respiration. Some remains locked away. Wood accumulates. Roots persist. Organic matter enters soil. Carbon becomes sediment. Over long periods, this storage influences global temperature. Higher vegetation density generally corresponds with lower atmospheric carbon levels. Lower carbon reduces heat retention. Again, this is not immediate. It unfolds across centuries. Plants do not correct climate change quickly. They dampen its extremes slowly. The distribution of vegetation matters. Forests near the equator influence global circulation patterns. Boreal forests affect albedo, reflecting or absorbing solar radiation depending on season. Grasslands regulate fire cycles that influence atmospheric chemistry. Each plant system contributes differently. There is no single plant effect. There is interaction. Climate also shapes plants. Cold limits growth. Heat increases transpiration. Drought restricts expansion. Plants respond by adjusting density, form, and function. The result is a dynamic equilibrium. Climate influences vegetation. Vegetation reshapes climate. Neither dominates completely. This mutual shaping creates long-term stability. When vegetation is removed abruptly through deforestation, fire, or prolonged drought, this balance breaks. Temperatures rise more sharply. Rainfall becomes erratic. Soil dries and erodes. The absence of plants accelerates climate instability. Recovery takes time, not years, decades, centuries. Plants cannot be replaced instantly. Their climate influence is cumulative. This is why ancient forests have disproportionate importance. They represent thousands of years of accumulated interaction. Their loss removes not just trees, but climate memory. Plants do not prevent change, they slow it. They do not stop extremes, they reduce frequency and intensity. They do not control the planet, they buffer it.
Without vegetation, Earth climate would swing harder, faster, and more violently. With plants, change becomes gradual, predictable, manageable. This is the quiet power of rooted life. In the next part, attention will shift to how plant systems interact with disturbance, fire, drought, and collapse, and why destruction does not always mean failure in plant-dominated worlds.
Disturbance is not a failure in plant systems. It is a condition they evolved within. Fire, drought, storms, floods, freezing, and extreme heat are not interruptions in the story of vegetation. They are recurring forces that shaped plant life over millions of years. Plants do not treat disturbance as an emergency. They treat it as a phase. Unlike animals, plants cannot flee danger or react basura. They remain in place and adjust their internal rhythm. When disruption begins, plants do not accelerate. They slow. Growth becomes secondary. Survival becomes structural. Fire is one of the clearest examples. In many ecosystems, fire is not purely destructive. It is cyclical. Vegetation accumulates biomass slowly over years. Dead leaves and dry stems store energy quietly. When fire occurs, this energy is released in a short event. Heat clears dense growth. Light reaches the ground. Ash returns minerals to the soil. What appears destroyed is chemically renewed. Many plant species evolved to depend on fire. Some seeds remain dormant for decades. Only intense heat breaks their outer layers. Others respond to smoke rather than flame. Smoke carries chemical signals that indicate reduced competition and increased nutrients. Germination begins. Fire becomes a signal, not a threat. After fire, recovery follows a familiar pattern. Fast-growing plants stabilize soil. Slower species establish deeper roots. The ecosystem resumes a known structure. Drought operates differently. Water scarcity rarely kills plants immediately. It constrains them. Plants close stomata to reduce water loss. Photosynthesis slows. Growth halts before damage occurs. Roots extend deeper. Energy is redirected toward storage. Above ground, plants may appear weak. Below ground, preparation continues. Some plants shed leaves deliberately. Others reduce surface area or enter partial dormancy. They do not compete during drought. They wait. When water returns, stored energy fuels recovery. Survival was never dependent on speed. Storms and floods cause mechanical disturbance. Trees fall. Soil shifts. Landscapes appear damaged. Yet fallen vegetation becomes structure. Logs slow water flow. Roots trap sediment. Canopy gaps allow light to reach the ground. Disturbance creates opportunity. Cold introduces long-term restraint. Freezing temperatures halt growth. Metabolism slows to minimal levels. Plants alter cellular chemistry to prevent damage. Life retreats inward. Spring does not revive plants from death. It releases them from restraint. The ability to survive disturbance depends on where plants invest energy. Plants that rely only on above-ground growth fail quickly. Those that invest below ground persist. Roots, rhizomes, and buried buds protect vital tissues from surface chaos. This is why plant-dominated ecosystems recover repeatedly after collapse. Not instantly, not perfectly, but reliably. Disturbance resets form, not function. Recovery follows established paths through succession. Early species stabilize conditions. Later species build complexity. Plants do not rebuild ecosystems intentionally. They respond to constraints. Order emerges naturally. However, disturbance becomes destructive when it is constant. Repeated fire, continuous drought, or ongoing soil loss prevents recovery. Energy reserves deplete. Soil memory erases. Plants tolerate disturbance. They do not tolerate permanence. Time between events is essential. Without time, resilience collapses. Plants are not fragile organisms. They are systems shaped by interruption. They do not resist force directly. They absorb it and persist. Their dominance on Earth is not due to speed or intelligence. It is due to repetition, cycle after cycle, disturbance after disturbance. They remain. In the next chapter, attention will move to how plants persist across deep geological time, outlasting changing climates and dominant species through continuity rather than resistance. Plants do not experience time as urgency. They experience it as continuity. Where animals respond to seconds and minutes, plants respond to seasons, decades, and centuries. Their strategies are not designed for rapid change, but for persistence across long and unstable periods of planetary history. The surface of Earth has never been fixed. Continents drifted, collided, and separated. Mountain ranges rose and eroded. Oceans expanded and retreated. Ice ages advanced and vanished. Through all of this, plant life remained. Not unchanged, but continuous. When environments transformed beyond recognition, plants did not attempt to preserve exact forms. They preserved presence. Forests disappeared many times from the surface. Entire regions turned barren. Green landscapes collapsed into ash and dust, yet extinction rarely followed. Survival shifted underground. Seeds buried beneath layers of soil. Spores carried by wind across continents. Roots protected in deeper layers where heat and cold arrived slowly. Plants distributed survival across time. They did not rely on a single generation or structure. They relied on duration. Dormancy became one of the most powerful tools in plant history. A seed can remain inactive for years, some for decades, others for centuries. During this time, there is no growth and no visible life, yet the internal structure remains intact. Waiting is not weakness, it is design. This ability to pause biological activity allows plants to bridge hostile periods. Climate shifts that destroy active organisms become tolerable delays. Even when conditions remain unfavorable for long stretches, plant lineages rarely vanish completely. They retreat into small, protected zones. They persist at low density. They endure quietly. When conditions shift again, expansion resumes. This pattern explains why plants survived every major mass extinction. When asteroid impacts darkened the sky and cooled the planet, photosynthesis declined sharply. Animal populations collapsed. Food chains failed. Plant life contracted, but did not disappear. Seeds and spores survived in sheltered environments. When light returned, plants recovered first, rebuilding the foundation for all other life. Plants also record time physically. Trees grow layer by layer. Each ring reflects a year of interaction with climate. Wide rings indicate abundance. Narrow rings reflect stress. Droughts, cold periods, and volcanic winters remain encoded in structure. This record is not memory, it is integration. Past conditions become part of form. Form influences future survival. Hardship does not teach plants, it shapes them. Across landscapes, this filtering effect determines persistence. Species unable to tolerate variability fade gradually. Those that endure instability dominate over time. Plant evolution favors tolerance, not speed. Some plant groups have changed little for hundreds of millions of years. Their success lies in flexibility,
rather than specialization. They function adequately under many conditions instead of perfectly under one. Trees represent extreme patience. Some live for thousands of years. They experience countless seasonal cycles and disturbances. Human history passes unnoticed. A tree responds only to rainfall, temperature, and light. Short-term events do not matter. Over geological time, plants also reshape the planet itself. Roots accelerate the breakdown of rock. Soil forms where none existed. New habitats appear. Plants do not only adapt to Earth, they modify it. Their influence accumulated slowly, generation after generation. They did not dominate through force or intelligence. They dominated through continuity. They remained when others vanished. They rebuilt after collapse. They persisted when movement-based life failed. This is the power of plants across deep time. In the next part, attention will move to how plants shaped animal life and why no complex ecosystem has ever existed without rooted life at its foundation.
Animals did not shape the living world alone. They followed paths prepared long before movement mattered. When plants spread across land, they did more than add green color to the surface. They redefined what survival meant for every organism that came after. Before plants dominated the land, life was constrained. Food was limited. Shelter was rare. Energy moved slowly through simple systems. Plants changed this completely. By capturing sunlight and converting it into stored energy, plants created abundance. This abundance did not belong to them alone. It became available to others. Herbivory emerged not as an attack, but as opportunity. Animals that could digest plant matter gained access to a constant energy source. They no longer depended solely on rare prey or unstable conditions. They could remain in one place longer. They could grow larger. They could reproduce more reliably. Movement patterns changed. Animals began to follow vegetation rather than wandering randomly. Seasonal migration emerged as a response to plant cycles. Where plants grew, animals gathered. Where plants declined, animals moved on. Plants dictated routes. Forests created corridors. Grasslands opened vast feeding grounds. Wetlands concentrated life around water and nutrients. Shelter followed the same logic. Plants altered landscapes physically. Trees created shade and moderated temperature. Roots stabilized soil and riverbanks. Canopies softened rainfall and reduced exposure. Animals benefited without effort. Nests formed in branches. Burrows remained stable in rooted soil. Camouflage evolved to match plant environments. Even behavior adapted. Predators learned to hunt along plant-defined edges. Prey learned to hide among stems, leaves, and shadows. Vision, hearing, and movement evolved in response to vegetated terrain. Plants did not react. They did not pursue. Yet they controlled space. Over time, dependency deepened. Many animals became specialists. They fed on specific plant species. They nested only in certain structures. They timed reproduction to flowering or fruiting cycles. This specialization increased efficiency, but reduced independence. When plants thrived, animals flourished. When plants declined, animal populations collapsed. This imbalance became clear during major environmental shifts. Periods of climate change affected vegetation first. Animals followed. When forests retreated, Forest-dependent animals vanished. When grasslands expanded, grazers diversified. Plants acted as filters. They did not select animals intentionally. They simply defined what conditions were possible. Pollination represents one of the most intimate connections. Plants that relied on animals for reproduction influenced animal evolution directly. Colors intensified. Scents evolved. Nectar appeared. Animals responded. Insects developed specialized mouthparts. Birds evolved precise flight and vision. Mammals adapted to feeding and transport. This exchange was not cooperation in a conscious sense. It was mutual dependency shaped by advantage. Neither side controlled the relationship. Both adjusted. Over long periods, these interactions increased biodiversity. More plant forms created more niches. More niches supported more animal strategies. Complex ecosystems emerged. Yet the foundation remained unchanged. Energy still entered through plants. Structure still came from rooted life. Even apex predators depended indirectly on vegetation. Remove plants, and the entire system collapses. Animals move. Plants stay. But it is the stationary organisms that determine where movement matters. Plants shaped animal size, speed, intelligence, and behavior without intention. They set limits and possibilities. In this sense, plants are not background life. They are the framework. Animals occupy space. Plants define it. In the next part, attention will turn to the modern era, how human activity altered plant-animal relationships, and what happens when the oldest stabilizing force on Earth is disrupted faster than it can adapt.
For most of Earth's history, plants shaped life without opposition. They expanded, retreated, adapted, and recovered within rhythms that unfolded slowly. Then a new force appeared. Humans did not introduce a new kind of disturbance. They changed the speed of disturbance. For the first time, large-scale vegetation loss occurred faster than plant systems could respond naturally. Early human societies lived within plant rhythms. They gathered, hunted, and migrated according to seasonal growth. Vegetation recovered between disturbances. Balance remained fragile, but intact. The shift came with permanence. Agriculture transformed plants from ecosystems into resources. Land was cleared not temporarily, but continuously. Fire was used not as a cycle, but as a tool of control. Plants were no longer allowed time. Forests became fields. Fields became settlements. Settlements expanded. Roots that once stabilized soil were removed. Canopies that moderated climate disappeared. Local feedback systems weakened. At first, productivity increased. Sunlight reached open ground. Crops grew quickly. Human populations expanded. But plant systems were simplified. Diversity declined. Soil structure weakened. Nutrient cycles shortened. What had once been resilient became dependent. Without deep root networks, soil eroded faster. Without layered vegetation, moisture evaporated quickly. Without plant diversity, recovery slowed. Plants still attempted to respond. Seeds spread into abandoned areas. Pioneer species stabilized ground. Succession tried to resume. But repeated disruption interrupted the process. Fields were replanted annually. Forests were cut faster than they could regenerate. Grasslands were grazed without rest. Time was removed from the equation.
This change altered plant-animal relationships as well. Animals that depended on complex vegetation lost habitat. Migration routes broke apart. Specialists declined. Generalists survived. Plant systems no longer filtered life gradually. They were overwritten abruptly. Climate feedback intensified. Reduced vegetation lowered transpiration. Local temperatures rose. Rainfall patterns shifted. Drier conditions further limited plant recovery. A reinforcing loop formed, but in reverse. Less vegetation led to harsher conditions. Harsher conditions limited regrowth. Unlike natural disturbance, this loop did not resolve itself. Plants require pauses. Humans removed them. Yet even under pressure, plants did not disappear. They adapted where possible. Urban environments became new habitats. Cracks in concrete hosted roots. Abandoned land greened quickly. Plants exploited every opening. This persistence reveals something essential. Plant systems are not fragile by default. They are overwhelmed by speed. Given enough time, plants rebuild soil. They restore cycles. They stabilize climate locally. But when disruption remains constant, their strategies fail. Modern conservation attempts to reintroduce time. Protected areas allow succession to proceed. Reforestation rebuilds root networks. Restoration projects reconnect fragmented systems. Success depends not on technology, but on patience. Plant systems do not respond to intention. They respond to conditions sustained over time. When space and duration return, recovery follows. This does not mean returning landscapes to a past state. It means allowing new, stable systems to form. Plants do not recreate history. They create continuity. The future of complex life still rests on rooted organisms. Energy still enters ecosystems through leaves. Soil still forms through roots. Climate still moderates through vegetation. Human systems remain dependent, whether acknowledged or not. The difference now is awareness. Plants will continue to persist. The question is whether they will be allowed to stabilize the world again. In the final part, attention will move towards synthesis, how plant life connects time, climate, and survival into a single, quiet system, and why understanding plants is essential to understanding Earth itself. Plants are often described as background life, silent, passive, unchanging. This description is inaccurate. Plants are not background. They are the system within which everything else operates. They do not dominate through movement or force. They dominate through connection. Every major process on land intersects with plant life. Energy enters ecosystems through leaves. Water cycles are moderated by roots. Soil forms through decay and accumulation of plant matter. Atmospheric composition is regulated through photosynthesis and respiration. These processes do not operate independently. They overlap. Plants connect them. When sunlight reaches Earth, most of it does not become life. It becomes heat. Only a small fraction is captured. That fraction is enough to sustain all complex ecosystems. Plants are the gate. They decide how much energy enters biological systems, where it goes, and how slowly it moves onward. This control is indirect but absolute. Without plants, energy flow collapses. Water movement is equally dependent. Rain does not simply fall and disappear. Where vegetation exists, water is absorbed, slowed, filtered, and released gradually. Roots prevent rapid runoff. Soil holds moisture. Evaporation is regulated through transpiration.
Rivers behave differently in vegetated landscapes. Floods become less violent. Dry periods shorten. Plants do not stop water. They regulate its timing. Soil is another point of convergence. Bare rock becomes soil only when plant life intervenes. Roots fracture surfaces. Organic matter accumulates. Microbial life expands. Over time, a living layer forms. This layer stores nutrients, water, and carbon. It buffers extremes. It remembers conditions. Soil is not dirt. It is infrastructure built slowly by plants. Atmospheric balance is also connected. Plants remove carbon dioxide and release oxygen. This exchange stabilizes climate over long periods. Fluctuations occur, but without vegetation, swings would be severe. Plants act as dampeners. They do not prevent change, they slow it. This slowing allows other life to adapt. Animals depend on this buffering. Their physiology assumes moderated temperatures, predictable water availability, and stable food sources. Remove plants, and these assumptions fail. Plants also connect time. They bridge short-term events and long-term trends. A storm lasts hours. A drought lasts years. A climate shift lasts centuries. Plants respond across all these scales. They bend in storms. They conserve during droughts. They migrate slowly through seed dispersal over generations. This layered response integrates time into survival. Plants do not solve problems quickly. They absorb them gradually. This absorption is why ecosystems persist despite repeated disruption. Nothing resets completely. Traces remain. Seeds in soil, nutrients in sediment, roots below the surface. Plants ensure continuity. This continuity is quiet but foundational. Human systems often ignore this because it operates beneath awareness. We notice animals because they move. We notice weather because it changes rapidly. Plants operate below perception thresholds. But when plant systems fail, the consequences become immediate. Erosion accelerates, floods intensify, temperatures spike, biodiversity collapses. The absence reveals the function. Plants do not exist for scenery. They are not optional components. They are the connective tissue of land-based life. Understanding plants is not a matter of biology alone. It is a matter of systems thinking. They connect energy, water, soil, atmosphere, and time into a single operating framework. When this framework remains intact, life persists even under stress. When it fractures, instability follows. Plants do not announce their role. They simply perform it. Continuously, silently, across ages. In the next part, the focus will move towards synthesis, how all these roles combine into a single planetary function, and why the future of stability depends less on innovation and more on preserving the quiet systems that already hold the world together. Stability in nature is rarely rigid. It is flexible. Plant systems do not remain stable by resisting change. They remain stable by allowing change to pass through them without breaking the whole. This is the core of their endurance. Where engineered systems fail under stress, plant systems bend. A forest is not a fixed structure. It is a shifting arrangement of growth, decay, and renewal occurring simultaneously. At any moment, some plants are growing rapidly, others are slowing down. Some are dying, others are germinating. There is no single state. This lack of uniformity is not disorder, it is protection. When conditions change suddenly, only part of the system is exposed. The rest remains buffered. If drought affects surface layers, deep-rooted plants persist. If cold damages leaves, underground tissues survive. If fire clears biomass, seeds and roots remain. Loss is distributed, not concentrated. This distribution prevents total collapse. Plant systems also operate without dependency on synchronization. Animals often depend on precise timing. Migration, reproduction, and feeding must align. Plants do not require perfect coordination. If one species flowers early and fails, another may succeed later. If one generation struggles, the next may encounter better conditions. Time is layered. This layering allows recovery to emerge from within the system rather than from outside intervention. Energy storage plays a central role. Plants rarely operate at maximum capacity. They store excess energy whenever conditions allow. Sugars accumulate in roots, stems, and seeds. These reserves are not idle. They are insurance. When stress appears, growth draws from storage rather than current production. This decoupling of survival from immediate conditions is critical. It allows plants to survive mismatches between energy availability and demand. Structure reinforces this resilience. Plants grow incrementally. They reinforce tissues gradually. Weakness is corrected over time. Unlike animals, plants do not need to maintain constant performance. They can afford inefficiency. A tree can lose half its canopy and continue functioning. A grassland can burn and return within seasons. Failure is partial, not terminal. Plant systems also integrate randomness. Seed dispersal is not precise. Many seeds fail. Some land in unsuitable places. But numbers compensate. A few successes are enough. This strategy reduces reliance on prediction. Plants do not need to know future conditions. They spread possibility across space. When environments shift, some of those possibilities align. This is why plant systems adapt without planning. They generate variation continuously. Selection operates passively. Change becomes absorbed into structure. Over long periods, this creates landscapes that appear stable despite constant internal turnover. Forests that seem ancient are always new at the cellular level. Grasslands renew biomass repeatedly. Wetlands reorganize sediments year after year. Continuity does not require permanence of parts. It requires persistence of process. This distinction is critical. Plant systems survive because their identity lies in function, not form. Remove individuals, and function continues. Alter species composition, and processes adapt. Only when processes themselves are interrupted, when soil is removed, when time is denied, when disturbance becomes continuous, does collapse occur. This is why recovery depends more on restoring conditions than on replanting specific species. Given soil, time, and space, plants reorganize themselves. They do not need instruction. They need opportunity. The resilience of plant systems is not heroic. It is procedural. They do not resist chaos. They incorporate it. This quiet resilience has allowed plants to anchor life on land for hundreds of millions of years. They have outlasted ice ages. They have endured mass extinctions. They have survived atmospheric collapse and recovery, not by dominance, but by continuity. In the final part, attention will turn to closure, how all these elements converge, and why the future of life remains inseparable from the quiet, persistent systems built by plants. The quiet strength of plant systems does not belong to the past alone. It extends forward. What plants have done for millions of years is not finished. It is ongoing. Every day, plant systems continue to integrate change into structure. They adjust to shifting temperatures. They respond to altered rainfall. They redistribute energy in response to pressure. None of this happens dramatically. There are no sudden corrections, no sharp reversals. Instead, plants recalibrate slowly. When climates warm, growth patterns adjust. Leaves change size and orientation. Root depth increases. Water use becomes more conservative. When climates cool, activity slows. Energy remains stored. Growth waits. Plants do not attempt to preserve a fixed state of the world. They allow the world to change, and then they reshape themselves within it. This distinction is critical. Systems that attempt to remain unchanged break under pressure. Systems that adapt without urgency persist. Plant systems belong to the second category. Even when environmental change accelerates, plants respond by extending their timelines. They do not chase short-term advantage. They invest in long-term viability. This is visible in how vegetation shifts geographically. Plants do not migrate as individuals. They migrate as populations, one generation at a time. Seeds disperse slightly farther than before. Survivors establish in marginal zones. Over decades, boundaries move. This movement is slow but relentless. It does not require coordination. It does not require planning. It requires only reproduction and time. As conditions shift, unsuitable areas lose density. Suitable areas gain it. The system redistributes itself across the landscape. This process appears inefficient when viewed over short spans. Over long spans, it is precise. Plants also adjust internally. Physiology shifts gradually. Tolerance ranges widen. Chemical pathways reorganize. Populations exposed to repeated stress become more resilient over generations. Those unable to adapt fade quietly. No single event defines success or failure. Only persistence matters. This is why plant systems remain functional even as species composition changes. The system does not depend on specific identities. It depends on roles. As long as some plants capture light, some stabilize soil, some regulate water, the system continues. Individual species may disappear. Functions persist. This functional redundancy is another layer of resilience. Where animals often occupy narrow ecological roles, plants overlap extensively. Multiple species can perform similar tasks under different conditions. If one fails, others compensate. This overlap reduces fragility. Plant systems do not aim for optimization. They aim for coverage. They fill space. They occupy time. This strategy makes them difficult to eliminate completely. Even when landscapes appear degraded, plant life remains latent. Seeds persist in soil banks. Roots survive beneath the surface. Microhabitats shelter fragments. Recovery does not require introduction from elsewhere. It emerges from within. As long as disturbance pauses, even briefly, reorganization begins. This means that the future of plant systems is not binary. It is not survival versus extinction. It is density versus sparsity, continuity versus fragmentation. Plants will not vanish from Earth. but the structure they form can weaken or strengthen depending on conditions. When fragmentation increases, buffering decreases. When buffering decreases, instability rises. Conversely, when continuity returns, stability follows. This is not a prediction. It is a pattern observed repeatedly in Earth's history. Plant systems do not collapse suddenly. They thin. They lose layers. They lose redundancy. They lose memory. Rebuilding these layers takes time. Not innovation, not acceleration. Time. As long as time is allowed to operate, plant systems will continue doing what they have always done, absorbing change, distributing stress, and holding the surface of the world together, quietly. We are still within this process. Nothing has ended. The future of Earth will not be decided by a single event. It will unfold through trends. Temperatures will shift, rainfall patterns will change, seasons will become less predictable. Through all of this, plant systems will not disappear, but they will reorganize. The question is not whether plants will survive, but how they will redistribute themselves across the planet. As climates warm, plant boundaries move. Cold-adapted species retreat toward higher latitudes and elevations. Heat-tolerant species expand into regions once unsuitable for them. What was once stable becomes transitional. This movement does not occur as migration in the animal sense. It happens generation by generation. Seeds germinate slightly beyond previous limits. Those that fail disappear. Those that succeed establish new edges. Over decades, landscapes change. Forests thin in some regions and densify in others. Grasslands expand where moisture decreases. Wetlands contract or shift position entirely. Plant systems redraw maps quietly. Soil becomes the limiting factor. Where soil remains intact, plants reorganize successfully. Where soil has been lost, recovery slows dramatically. Roots cannot stabilize what no longer exists. Seeds cannot germinate without structure. This makes past plant systems critically important to the future. Regions with deep, biologically active soil will adapt. Regions stripped repeatedly will struggle. Water will define success. Plants that manage water efficiently will dominate. Deep-rooted species gain advantage. Shallow systems decline under irregular rainfall. Diversity becomes resilience again. Systems with many overlapping plant strategies adjust more easily. Monocultures fail quickly. This pattern is already visible. Where plant variety exists, landscapes buffer extremes. Where variety is removed, instability rises. Plants do not solve future problems instantly. They negotiate them slowly. They test possibilities. They abandon failures. They reinforce successes. This trial and error process does not require planning. It requires time. Human intervention can accelerate collapse or enable adjustment. When land is allowed to rest, plants reorganize. When pressure remains constant, systems thin. The future of plant life is therefore not a mystery. It follows rules already observed across Earth's history. Change will continue. Plants will respond. The structure of the world will shift, but the underlying process will remain. Roots will grow. Leaves will capture light. Soil will rebuild where allowed. The planet will not become lifeless. It will become different, and plants will be the first to define what that difference looks like. In the next part, attention will move toward one final perspective: how understanding plant systems changes how we understand time, stability, and survival itself. Change does not arrive evenly across the planet. It spreads. As environmental conditions shift, plant systems do not respond all at once. They fragment, adjust, and reconnect in new configurations. Some regions lose density, others gain it. This redistribution is not random. It follows constraints. Temperature sets limits first. Plants tolerate ranges, not points. When averages shift, boundaries move. Cold-adapted plants withdraw from warming regions. They do not disappear immediately. They thin. At the same time, heat-tolerant species expand cautiously into newly suitable zones. Most attempts fail. A few succeed. Those few define the future edge. Rainfall patterns reshape structure next. Where precipitation becomes irregular, plants favor storage and deep rooting. Where rain intensifies, fast-growing species dominate briefly before systems rebalance. Water does not need to vanish to destabilize plants. Unpredictability alone is enough. Plants prefer consistency over abundance. Soil becomes the decisive factor. Regions with intact soil systems allow plants to reorganize. Where erosion has stripped structure away, even favorable climate cannot support recovery. Roots cannot stabilize absence. This creates divergence. Two regions with similar climate can behave entirely differently depending on soil history. Plant systems carry memory forward. Past vegetation determines future possibility. Diversity plays a central role in adaptation. Systems with many overlapping plant strategies respond flexibly. If one species fails, another fills the role. Monocultures lack this redundancy. They appear productive in stable conditions, but collapse rapidly under change. This is not weakness of individual plants, it is fragility of structure. As plant systems reorganize, animal life follows. Herbivores track vegetation shifts. Predators track herbivores. Migration routes alter. Breeding patterns adjust. But movement alone does not guarantee survival. When plant systems thin rather than disappear, animals face unstable availability rather than total loss. This instability is harder to adapt to. Human systems encounter similar constraints. Agriculture depends on predictability. Plant systems under transition resist uniform output. Yields fluctuate. Soil demands recovery time. Water availability shifts. Plants do not respond to demand, they respond to conditions. This mismatch defines much of modern tension. Yet reorganization is not inherently negative. New ecosystems form. Different balances emerge. Some regions become more productive as others decline. Plant systems do not preserve fairness. They preserve function. They test configurations continuously. What fails, fades. What works, persists. This process has no end point. There is no final, stable arrangement waiting ahead, only continual adjustment. Plants do not seek equilibrium. They seek viability. As long as light, water, and time remain available in some form, plant systems will continue redistributing life across the surface. Maps will change. Boundaries will blur. Definitions of natural will shift. But the underlying process remains familiar. Roots extend where allowed. Leaves capture energy where possible. Soil rebuilds where disturbance pauses. The planet does not become empty. It becomes uneven. In the next part, attention will move to the final layer of this chapter: how long these transitions take, why they feel sudden to humans, and why plant time and human time rarely align. What makes this moment in Earth's history feel unstable is not that change is happening. Change has always happened. What feels unfamiliar is the speed at which change now unfolds when measured against systems that were never designed for urgency. Plant systems operate on timelines that stretch far beyond a single human life. They respond across generations, not moments. They adjust through accumulation, not reaction. Humans, however, experience the world through immediacy. A decade feels long. A century feels abstract. Anything beyond that disappears from intuition. This mismatch creates tension. When plant systems reorganize slowly, humans interpret the process as failure or delay. When plants thin before stabilizing, the thinning is mistaken for collapse. When recovery requires decades, impatience labels it as impossibility. But from the perspective of plants, nothing unusual is happening. They are doing what they have always done: testing limits, abandoning what no longer works, reinforcing what still functions. The difference now is observation. For the first time, human societies are watching plant systems respond in real time, while simultaneously influencing the conditions those systems respond to. This feedback loop compresses perception. A forest that shifts over 50 years feels abrupt. A grassland that degrades over 2 decades feels catastrophic. Yet in plant terms, these are short intervals. Plants are not failing to keep up. They are operating at their natural pace. The question becomes whether space and time will still exist for that pace to matter. Plant systems do not require perfect conditions. They require continuity. They need interruptions to end. They need cycles to complete. They need pauses between pressures. Without pauses, thinning continues. With pauses, reorganization begins. This distinction defines what comes next. The future of plant life will not be determined by single actions, but by whether patterns allow recovery windows to reappear. Where land is allowed to rest, plants respond. Where soil remains intact, roots return. Where disturbance slows, buffering rebuilds. This does not mean returning landscapes to a previous state. Plant systems do not move backward. They assemble new configurations from what remains possible. What emerges will look different. Species composition will shift. Boundaries will redraw. But difference does not equal loss of function. Plants have rebuilt worlds before under unfamiliar conditions. They rebuilt after ice ages. They rebuilt after mass extinctions. They rebuilt after atmospheric collapse. They did not recreate the past. They constructed continuity. Understanding this reframes the present moment. Instability does not mean the end of plant systems. It means they are in transition. Transitions feel uncomfortable because they lack clear identity. They resist prediction. They appear messy and incomplete. Humans prefer defined outcomes. Plants do not. They move forward without knowing the destination. They explore possibility through persistence. This is why any discussion about the future of life on land eventually returns to plants. Not because they are fragile,
but because they are foundational. Everything else adjusts around them. As this documentary approaches its conclusion, the focus shifts from observation to perspective. What plant systems reveal is not only how Earth functions, but how stability itself is constructed. Not through control, not through speed, but through patience, layering, and time allowed to do its work. The next chapter will not introduce new mechanisms or new processes. It will bring together what has already been revealed and ask what it means to live within a world sustained by systems that move more slowly.
The world is not held together by speed, nor by force, nor by constant intervention. It is held together by systems that move slowly enough to absorb change without breaking. Plants revealed this truth repeatedly. They showed that survival is not about reacting first, but about remaining present long enough for conditions to change again. They taught that stability is not a fixed state, but a range wide enough to contain uncertainty. Roots anchor more than soil. They anchor processes. Leaves capture more than light. They regulate energy so it does not overwhelm what follows. Soil stores more than nutrients. It stores memory of water, of life, of time. Nothing in these systems rushes. Nothing demands immediate results. And yet, everything essential continues. Forests fall and return in altered forms. Grasslands thin and recover. Landscapes reorganize without instruction. Plants do not promise permanence. They promise continuity. This distinction matters. Continuity allows life to persist through instability. It allows recovery without erasing history. It allows the future to form without copying the past. For humans, this perspective offers something rare: relief from urgency. Not everything meaningful happens quickly. Not everything valuable can be forced. Some systems require patience not as a moral choice, but as a functional requirement. Plants do not ask to be saved dramatically. They ask for space. They ask for time. They ask for interruptions to end. When those conditions exist, recovery follows naturally, quietly, gradually, reliably. Beneath the surface, this process is already underway. Roots extend unseen. Seeds wait without impatience. Soil rebuilds grain by grain. Nothing announces this work. Nothing celebrates it. And yet, it continues. The world does not rest because it is stable. It rests because slow systems are holding it together. As this documentary comes to a close, there is nothing urgent to conclude. Only something steady to remember. Life on land persists not because it is fast, but because it learned how to wait. And in that waiting, the world remains possible. Good night.